The disappearance of Alex had turned my world upside down. We'd been inseparable since our sandbox days, sharing secrets and dreams. When he didn't show up for our weekly gaming night, I knew something was terribly wrong. The following days were a blur of police reports and frantic calls. The lack of news was maddening, leaving me in a state of anxious limbo. Then, on the fifth day of his disappearance, something bizarre happened. An email popped up in my inbox. Sender, Alex. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it. The message was short and unsettling. Meet me at our spot. Midnight. Come alone. Our spot was an abandoned factory at the edge of town. A place we'd explored as adventurous teens. Every rational thought told me it was a trap, or at least some kind of cruel prank. But the sliver of hope that I might find Alex, or at least some answers, pushed me to act against my better judgment. I decided to go, but not without precautions. I told a friend where I was going and took a flashlight and a pocket knife, just in case. The night was unnervingly quiet as I made my way to the factory. The building loomed in the distance, its broken windows gaping like dark, unblinking eyes. Memories of our teenage adventures here flooded back, but they were quickly drowned out by a growing sense of unease. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As I stepped into the factory, the air turned cold and stale. The place was a graveyard of rusted machines and debris. I called out for Alex, my voice echoing off the walls, but there was no response. Just an oppressive silence that seemed to absorb sound. A faint whisper broke the silence, making me jump. Over here, it beckoned. It sounded like Alex, but eerily distorted, as if coming from a broken speaker. I followed the voice, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, heart pounding in my chest. The deeper I ventured, the more the factory seemed like a labyrinth designed to disorient. I passed through rooms littered with industrial waste, each step taking me further from the world I knew. The whisper guided me, always just out of sight, leading me deeper into the bowels of the building. I finally entered a room that felt like the heart of the factory. It was larger than the others, with a high vaulted ceiling and remnants of what might have been assembly lines. There, in the dim light of my flashlight, stood Alex. But he was changed, his eyes sunken, his face gaunt and pale. "You came," he said, his voice a hollow echo of itself. I asked him what happened, where he'd been. His answer sent a chill down my spine. "I've seen the other side," he said, his eyes glinting unnaturally in the dim light. Before I could respond, the ground beneath me crumbled. I fell, tumbling into darkness. A scream caught in my throat. I landed hard on something soft yet unnervingly squishy. Disoriented, I struggled to my feet, trying to process what had just happened. When my eyes adjusted, I realized I was in a narrow tunnel, the walls damp and close. The air was thick, filled with the smell of earth and decay. Panic gripped me as I realized I was trapped underground, in a place I didn't understand. My only choice was to move forward. I crawled through the tunnel, the beam of my phone's flashlight my only guide. The walls seemed to close in on me, the space barely wide enough to pass through. Claustrophobia clawed at my mind, urging me to turn back, but there was no going back. That's when I heard it. A low, menacing growl echoing through the tunnel. My blood ran cold. The sound wasn't human, nor did it belong to any animal I knew. It was something else, something far more sinister. I pressed on, my body shaking with fear. The tunnel twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the unknown. The growling grew louder, more aggressive. I knew I wasn't alone down here. Something was in the darkness with me. Then, the unthinkable happened. My phone slipped from my trembling hands, the light extinguishing as it hit the ground. I was plunged into total darkness, the growling now terrifyingly close. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Finally, I found it. The screen cracked, but still functioning. The light revealed a nightmarish scene. Creatures, humanoid, but grotesquely deformed, their eyes reflecting the light like those of wild animals. My mind raced with terror. These were the inhabitants of the other side Alex had mentioned. Were they the reason for his transformation? I backed away slowly, trying not to provoke them. Suddenly, Alex appeared, his face twisted in fear. "Run!" he shouted, grabbing my arm. We sprinted through the tunnels, the creatures howling in pursuit. The chase was a blur of fear and adrenaline. We darted through the tunnels, every turn a gamble. The creatures were fast, their guttural snarls filling the air. Abruptly, Alex halted, pushing me into a small alcove in the tunnel wall. "Hide here," he whispered, his eyes wide with terror. I squeezed into the space, my heart pounding in my ears. I watched, helpless, as the creatures swarmed over Alex. Their screams and his merged into a cacophony of horror. Then, silence. The creatures had taken him, leaving me alone in the darkness. I stayed hidden for what felt like an eternity, every sound making me jump. Eventually, the tunnel fell silent, the creatures gone. I emerged from a hiding spot, my body numb with shock. I had no choice but to continue through the tunnels, driven by a desperate hope of finding a way out. The darkness felt endless, a void in which time and direction had no meaning. Finally, I saw a glimmer of light. It was faint but unmistakable. I stumbled towards it, my legs weak with exhaustion. The light grew brighter, a beacon of hope in the oppressive darkness. The tunnel opened up, and I found myself back outside. The factory stood silent and foreboding behind me, a tomb for the horrors it concealed. The night air felt cold and alien on my skin. I reported everything to the police, but they dismissed my story as a trauma-induced hallucination. They continued to search for Alex, but I knew they wouldn't find him. Not the Alex I knew. The experience haunted me. Nights were the worst, filled with nightmares of dark tunnels and monstrous creatures. Alex's fate tormented me. Had he become one of them? Sometimes, in the dead of night, I hear whispers, like echoes from the depths of the earth. "I've seen the other side," they murmur, a chilling reminder of the nightmarish realm beneath our feet. I've tried to move on, to forget the horrors I witnessed. But there are moments when the world feels thin, fragile, and I wonder what lurks just beyond our perception. And so, my story ends.